All right, we're live. We're live, January 4th. And by my count, that's 4 days in a row. Man, I'm off to a hot start in 2025. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm assuming we know why we're on here tonight, right? Let me know where you're from. We're gonna wait a moment, let some people come in the door. I'll take a few comments. We are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Hello from Hilton, New York. It's Linda Spencer. Good to have you on. Linda, thank you for being here. If you don't follow me on my YouTube channel, it's meteorologist Jeremy Capel. Would love to see you there. All right, this update, we do have a lot of things to cover. I'm actually going to likely provide a couple of updates tonight. This is going to be the first. This one's going to be fairly brief. I am going to try to cover a lot of material to get us up to date because there have been a lot of changes to the forecast here in recent weeks. Recent hours, I should say. But with that being said, this one's going to be fairly tight. I'm going to try to keep this in that maybe 15 to 20 minute window. We're going to cover all of the basics, including what's happening right now. Where the storm is, it is already producing precipitation across the plains. The latest watches, warnings, including an extensive area of a winter storm warning. There's an extensive area of a blizzard warning now, and also an ice storm warning. So we're going to cover all of those, who's involved with those individual warnings. And then we're going to talk about some of the finer details of this forecast, which does in fact include a shifting track when it comes to the mode of heaviest precipitation and also heaviest icing. I have a person trying to get a hold of me right now. Apparently they're unaware that we're live. We're live. Thank you for being on. Let's get you started with the current radar perspective. I want to show you the breadth of the storm. I've got Robert on here from Louisville. I've got Rosanna. Not smashed in like last year. Wait, Rosanna, where are you at? And then that's Christina up here from Adams County, Ohio. And Gigi says hello as well. This is the storm. It's already getting cranking right there across the central United States. The storm is beginning to eject out of the Rockies, and that's when the magic will happen with these powerful upper level wind storms, which is what that is. It's a strong low pressure in the upper levels surrounded by extremely fast moving jet stream winds. When they get out into the plains, we'll see that surface low pressure rapidly deepen. We'll see moisture streaming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll see an explosion of precipitation. We're already seeing precipitation as we speak. Here's a look at your radar perspective, but also I'll put some temperatures on here to show you the fact that we've got 70s and even some 80s across South Texas. There's a lot of warmth, and in fact, that warmth does extend a good distance to the north. You've got 50s up near Tulsa. You got 50s making their way into the lower Tennessee River Valley, and just ahead of that you have all this cold with teens, and you got 20s, and kind of the clash of the air masses. So you know how that can result this time of the year. It's going to be a big mess is what we're expecting. I want to show you the watches and the warnings and all that fun stuff that we have, and I'll be sure to take some comments as we go, but you have to be patient with me. All right, we've got we have a bad radar is what we have. We'll come back to that radar. We have lots of information to get to. We'll come back over to our regular satellite radar. I think it just died on me. That's all right. That's what happens when you install the new update that they recommend. Install the update to keep it from crashing. And no, it crashed anyway. That's all right. That's loading. And we've got the satellite up for you right now. And let's go back to our basic setup. And I want to go back to, we're going to get, this is actual radar. Here's our setup. The thinking is becoming, we're definitely seeing the models coming into agreement, okay? But they're not quite there yet. And we're struggling on the northern end, and we're struggling on the southern end. So it's that sweet spot in the middle that's going to get all the snow. It's that area on that southern end that's going to receive the lion's share of the ice. I believe this forecast still holds largely true, but you are going to see your share of ice into places like Louisville, Kentucky, probably Lexington, Evansville as well. The snow to the north, though, very significant. I'm going to show you my projected totals here in just a couple of moments. Okay, I've got Tina on here. Hello from Indiana. Where are you at? Mary is in Biloxi, Mississippi. I've got Melinda Cornett from Louisville, Kentucky. Hello from Shepherdsville. That's Loranda. And good to have you guys on tonight. Thanks for being here. All right, so my radar went down, but I think I got it back up for you. Let's take a look at this. I've got all the warnings on here. All right. Yeah. You know, you buy all this expensive equipment, and you hope it works, but oftentimes it fails. But today we're going to get this bad boy going, back online. All right, here we go. So I've got the clouds on. I'm going to put that in motion real quick. Again, storm just entering the central plains. You can see the cold air to the north. If you look at those small numbers in the teens, single digits up there for the northern plains. You got 60s and 70s to the south. So kind of just a ridiculous temperature contrast, and that will play a factor in this forecast. Here are the active watches, warnings, and advisories. And there's so many of them. I mean, this storm is absolutely massive. I showed this earlier. So you still have winter weather advisories up here in Montana from the same storm. You got blizzard warnings. We'll talk about where those are at. You got winter storm warnings. They go from the northern tier. And I did this earlier. I want to show you how far this is. So we're going to go just do a little path here, and we're going to say, all right, up here, northern Montana, right? And then it's going to exit out here somewhere in the Delmarva Peninsula. Look at that number there. This thing is like 1,800 miles from wide from where it's impacting weather right now. You can see that number there, right there. About 1,800 miles is what we're dealing with. So it's a lot. It's a lot of territory. And, yeah, it's a lot to deal with, I'll say as well. But hopefully you guys are prepared. Did you make your way out to the market today? Good grief. Good grief, the shelves are completely clean down here in southern Indiana. All right, let's talk about those warnings that we have. And let's see. There we go. So winter weather advisories exiting the high plains. The most serious warning that we have right now is this blizzard warning across central portions of Kansas into the Kansas City metropolitan area and points north into parts of northwestern Missouri. So all that area in red, that's a blizzard. So it's a combination of heavy snowfall and high winds that are driving that warning. The areas in hot pink, this is the winter storm warning, and that goes all the way through the mid-Atlantic, and within this area you could have heavy snowfall, you could have heavy sleet, you could have heavy freezing rain, and a combination of all three. So just because you're in the pink doesn't mean you're not going to get the freezing rain or the sleet, because you will. Likely for most areas, at least that are not up here near the Interstate 70 corridor, which I expect to remain pretty much all snow. Now that purple area you see here, this is actually an ice storm warning that goes from Springfield to Cape Girardeau and into near the Paducah area into Henderson, Kentucky. But again, they highlight that area because that's the highest confidence of seeing damaging or destructive ice. It doesn't make a difference where you live, because many areas will be in that line of ice. We're going to show you that here in a couple of moments. You do see, if we add on radar, we've got precipitation beginning to develop. Some light snow, moderate snow up here, Kansas City into portions of Nebraska. So far, everything's been pretty much frozen form, but as you probably know, that's going to change. Once we get into the overnight period tonight for parts of the plains, they'll also go over to freezing rain and sleet, heavy freezing rain and sleet. All right, with that being said, right now it's 8:30. I'm going to try to keep this maybe another 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that. We're going to go into the forecast data, the things that have changed. In the meantime, James, I see you're on here. Jim Perry, weather in Geneva is clear and just cold. How's the microphone tonight, James? And then I've got Chris Pate, hello from Iowa. Iowa's missing out on this storm for the most part. Although, you guys always have a long, long winter. So I know you don't envy us in this situation here. Okay, so very complex situation developing. I'm going to take you on over to our other radar source just to show you where that rain is already beginning to fall. Snowfall out here in Kansas. This is just the very, very beginning of the storm system as it continues to develop. Jet stream winds, we'll look at those now. And where did I put my jet stream winds? Here they are. All right, and we'll take that. We've got about 140 people live on here, by the way. Thank you very much. If you're finding this information to be helpful or entertaining, maybe, yeah, feel free to like and share. It is appreciated. So the storm system that we're watching, these are the upper level winds. It's this impulse you see right here, following the heels of this large upper low that's been just pumping the cold air into the eastern U.S. So with all that cold air in place, you bring in this other strong storm system. That's where we have a problem. If you don't have that other storm system that was in place first, you don't have all the cold air, and you have just rain. And most people are not going to be complaining about that. But in this scenario, we do have that vigorous upper level storm. That's going to be the thing triggering everything that's downhill, that's downwind of where this thing is going. So here's where it is. This is where it's going. That upper low is going to eject out into the plains tonight, into the middle Mississippi River Valley tomorrow afternoon. And that piece of energy will slide to the east as we head on into your Monday. As far as precipitation, this is the very latest from the European forecast model, the 18Z run. As always, the European model is typically superior. Precipitation developing, but right now everything is light. The precipitation light, maybe a little bit of moderate snow shower activity. But you can see in time, as we go throughout overnight tonight, this is tomorrow morning, all that light color, the light pink and the light blue, turn to dark pink and turn to dark blue. That's because precipitation will be increasing rapidly during the overnight period tonight, and then into the day tomorrow we see it sliding right on into the middle Mississippi River Valley and the Ohio River Valley. Now what I want to discuss is why we have all this pink. What is it? What is creating the pink? And of course the pink is that area of mixed precipitation. A lot of people ask, well, how can you have freezing rain? How can you have rain when temperatures are below freezing? Well, it's only true because they're below freezing at the surface. So temperatures near the ground below freezing, but if you go up in the atmosphere, the temperatures actually rise above freezing for a short period of time, and for the lower portion of what we call the troposphere, where a lot of the weather occurs. Here's a look at what we call a cross-section diagram. So this is a vertical cross-section of the atmosphere. Instead of looking down at the atmosphere like we normally do, we're going to take a cross-section and we're going to look at the temperature profile. This is according to the European forecast model. And let me show you a couple of items on here, because I know this is hard to read if you're not trained in meteorology. First and foremost, this line right here is the 0 line. Okay, that's 0 degrees Celsius. Don't ask why it runs diagonal. It just does. I'm not going to get into why. But if it's everything to the left of the 0 line, everything is frozen. Everything is frozen. So let's get in time. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I know I'm going to lose a lot of people. But some people may find this interesting, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. A couple other items on here that you're going to see. I'm going to back it up just a little bit. Is that the red line indicates that's the air temperature of the actual atmospheres. You go all the way up as measured by weather balloons and then as projected by weather models. The green line, that's the actual dew point temperature, a representation of how much moisture is in the air. When everything is left of the yellow 0 line, everything has to be frozen if there's anything falling from the sky at all. But you won't get things falling from the sky until the green line and the red line come together. That means the air is saturated. So let me go fast forward to when that occurs. This is a profile out of Louisville, Kentucky. And right here, our profile becomes saturated at about 15Z tomorrow morning. So 15Z, that's going to put us close to around 7 a.m. in the morning. So at 7 a.m., we're going to have snow falling in Louisville. And we know it's snow because all of it is left of that yellow line. But what happens later during the day is part of that profile peaks over the yellow line. You see that? It's not much, but at about 850 millibar, you have an area that goes 2-3 degrees Celsius above freezing. So while the air above it's below freezing, the air below it is below freezing. The air right there in the middle is just enough to melt some of the falling snow, and it melts it into either raindrops or half melts into something like grapple, and then it refreezes, or it fully melts back into rain before re-entering the sub-freezing temperatures below and hits the ground as freezing rain. So all that's going to depend on how thick that warm layer is, and it doesn't have to be much of a warm layer. But the devil is in the details. And until we know exactly how large that warm layer is and how long it's going to stick around, we're going to have a hard time determining exactly how much sleet, how much freezing rain, as opposed to snow that you receive. And let me tell you, if we didn't have to worry about the sleet or the freezing rain problem, this forecast would be really, really easy, because we just have to look at forecasted precipitation projections, which are usually pretty accurate, and they're showing 1.5 to 2 inches for a large area. If it was all snow, that would be 15, 18, 20, 2 feet of snow. Okay, and it would be widespread potential of 2 feet of snow. But because of the ice problem, we have to calculate how much of that's going to ice down. Because let me tell you, if you have a ton of sleet that falls, let's say, and it melts into a liquid inch of precipitation, well, that's still about an inch of precipitation. Sleet doesn't add up. But if it's not sleet, turns out to be snow, well, that 1 inch turns into about 10 or 12. And so it's obviously kind of an art to get that right. All right, I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I felt like I needed to describe what was happening in our atmosphere that was responsible for that frozen precipitation that we're expecting. Speaking of, that's what we're looking at here. This is the late afternoon run of the European forecast model. You know, I always go to this one unless I have a good reason not to. So it's been very consistent. It did come back north just a little bit from where it was last night with the placement of the heaviest frozen precipitation. But if you're looking at this map, still seeing a lot of numbers, 3/4 of an inch, 2/3 of an inch, in some places close to an inch of precipitation across far southern Indiana, central northern Kentucky, into parts of south central Missouri, southern Illinois, and back into Kansas. If that holds true, as we've been telling you, a half inch of ice is going to bring down some trees. 3/4 of an inch of ice will bring down a lot of trees, and we sure hope we don't have any problems worse than that. What I would like to see actually is, instead of having all this freezing rain, let's have sleet. Because sleet does not collect on the power lines. Sleet does not collect on the trees and is not nearly as damaging. So if that's the case, then we will dodge a bullet. But I suspect we are going to see some areas that receive a really critical amount of freezing rain. We'll have to continue to monitor. As far as this forecast is concerned, no huge changes. Now, some areas that are going to receive a lot of freezing rain, like it looks like Lexington, Louisville, maybe into the Evansville market, you're also in line to see potentially quite a bit of snow because you have so much precipitation that's coming. You're going to start as snow, actually, and I want to go back to that real quick. I'm going to show you the evolution of the storm. Let me find where I was. This is where I was. Back to the European model. It's going to start out in the Louisville market, southern Indiana. For many areas, it's going to start out as snow, and it's not going to be light. This purple area is a heavy snow band, and so it's going to start as snow for many, many areas. But then again, as that warm nose aloft begins to creep into the picture, It'll change it over to some sleet, to some freezing rain, maybe heavy at times. So accumulation will stop while you're in the pink. The accumulation will be very minor. And I'm not talking about ice accumulation. I'm talking about overall snow accumulation. The ice accumulation will be significant. But again, it does not add up like snow, so it won't measure it like snow at the end. However, it's not over once the ice leaves, that low pressure leaves, and then we have what we were talking about yesterday is this secondary deformation zone. Sometimes meteorology called a trowel, and that's on the back side of low pressure. You have lift created by divergence aloft. That's air that's moving away from each other. It's creating lift in the atmosphere. And I actually think on this back end, a lot of people can receive some pretty decent snow, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 additional inches. And that's when a lot of people will see their snow across maybe southern Illinois, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky. And then Virginia is going to get it again, so they'll get a lot of snow on the front end, and they'll get another good batch there on the back end. So how much are we talking about? Let's get to the details. We talked about the ice. Let's talk about the snow. And then I'm going to take questions, and I'll show you my projections, okay? And by the way, thank you, guys, for being here. This is the latest European forecast model, and we're getting close to really, I think, narrowing this thing down. It's been really hot and very consistent with all the snow out there where that blizzard warning is in effect across portions of western Kansas and northwestern Missouri. Make that eastern, northeastern Kansas and western Missouri. You could have this pocket of this heavy snow right through here. Any of this pink could exceed 10 or even 12 inches. But again, that's a pretty narrow band, and there's a reason it's narrow, because we're fighting multiple forces here. And one of the forces to the south is going to be the amount of warm air, again, that's being pulled into the atmosphere, producing sleet and freezing rain, so that's going to tone down the snow totals. On the south end, you get your sleet down and your freezing rain down. On the north end, however, where previously there had been a much larger forecast, by the way, as far as snowfall potential, and a lot of the forecasters and forecast models were just going gangbusters with the amount of snow that they were projecting across northern portions of Indiana and Illinois, to a lesser degree, I guess, for Ohio. But you can see how that it really trails down. Why is my thing moving? Let me lock this in here. All right, lock. You don't move. No, only trying to telestrate here. That's all. So. But on the northern end, what we've been seeing, my telestrator's not working. Oh well, on the northern end, we're getting that dry air. So on the south end, you got the warm air. On the north end, you got the dry air, and the dry air can reduce accumulation just as effectively through evaporation. So I mean, as the snow is falling, it'll dry up before it even hits the ground. So on the northern end, dry air. On the southern end, warm air. It's that fine line in the middle. It's that little sweet spot. That's who's going to see that foot and a half of snow. That's where that's going to happen. But again, very difficult to rein in exactly where that's going to occur. That's why in time, now that we're moving away from what we call the mid-range weather models, we go now that we're within 12, 24 hours of the storm, we go into the high-resolution models. All this is going to come down to microdynamics. And it's a fancy word that means that the big weather models, including the European, have a hard time figuring out the finer details of resolving this forecast, including, again, that little warm nose, exactly where that shows up, or things like dynamic cooling. Sometimes evaporational cooling can be underestimated in storm systems like this as well. So there's a lot of factors, and we're going to begin to lean into those high-resolution models. And I'm waiting for the 0Z run of the high-res NAM to come out, which should be coming out very shortly, and I'll be providing that update. And I'm also waiting for the late runs of the regular models as well, including the HRRR. So the 0Z NAM is coming in right now. Hopefully I'll have some results for you before the end of this program. If not, we're going to jump back on here in just a little bit. We've got about 120 people live on here, and I've got Jim Perry and David Gully. One's asking for popcorn, the other one's asking for pineapples, and don't ask me why. Okay? All right, with that being said, it is 8:44. So I've shown you most of the snow. I'll mention one other thing with that. Let me come back over here. So the Euro, again, was showing the snow, which was further south than the GFS. But again, these two models are beginning to come together. The GFS did shift to the south today as expected. I expect that shift will continue. There's the current run of the actual GFS. We're going to compare that to the Canadian, which actually has an interesting solution that, interestingly enough, for the central, or for the Ohio River Valley, has some of the heaviest totals down in central Kentucky, which doesn't really which is kind of hard to explain. That stuff is forming actually on the nose. Heavy snow as this thing is coming in. I don't think I'm buying that yet, but it's at least an interesting feature and it's worth watching. Here's a quick look at the high-res NAM. It's still too far north as far as I'm concerned with the snow. I think we're going to see this thing come down significantly during this run that's coming in right now. I'm going to be providing those results probably going to have to wait till after this video update, but a little bit later on this evening when the rest of those late runs are in, and I think we'll be able to absolutely nail down this forecast at that point. So with that being said, I'm going to show you my forecast next. Do we have any questions? I'm going to check over with our friends on YouTube. And thank our friends over on YouTube for being here. We did have a big push on YouTube last night. Had over 3,000 watch my feed last night, which is awesome. And so the people that are on here now, if you can give me some love, it's appreciated. And hey, Jim's watching me on both channels over here. Jim Perry, David Allen. I've got Tan Man. I've got Alexander on here as well. He says, moving to Vermont, okay, from Middle Tennessee, was originally supposed to do it Monday, but watching to make sure. Just discovered your channel. Thank you, Alex. So, your questions for you. How are you seeing Nashville to Bowling Green, Louisville to Cincinnati, to be safer on Tuesday? Well, the further I would say that the worst is going to be Louisville and Cincinnati. Cleveland's too far north. They're going to have a little bit of lake effect, but it won't even be much. It'll just be snow. And if you go south to Bowling Green, there might be a little ice left over, but not a lot. Nashville should be fine. So, Bowling Green, Tuesday. Let me back up on that. Bowling Green's going to have some pretty significant ice as well. So I would say avoid the state of Kentucky if you can. Avoid the state of Kentucky on Tuesday if you can. All right, I hope that helps you. Who else do we have on? I'm going to show you my current snowfall forecast next. Will East Tennessee miss this one? No, East Tennessee will not miss this one. You're going to get some ice, and the upper elevation is going to get a little snow, but it won't be like what they're expecting up, in the Midwest and parts of the Ohio River Valley. Okay, all right. I've got Dan on here. How much snow in Jackson, New Jersey? What part of the state are you in? And again, I'll go ahead and bring my map up now so we can look at that together. All right. I think if you're in southern New Jersey, far southern New Jersey, 3 to 6. South of Atlantic City, 1 to 3. North of there, little to none. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. You can see that area of 6 to 12 that I have painted on this map here. Oh, wait, you can't see it because I haven't showed it to you yet. Here it is. All right, so again, for our friend out there in southern Jersey or wherever in New Jersey, if you're northern Jersey, near the city, you get nothing. Southern Jersey, you could have 3 to 6. You see that 6 to 12 as it winds its way from Kansas City, which locally Kansas City area and into Kansas, it's probably going to be more like 12 to 16. But that's 6 to 12, maybe just north of St. Louis into parts of south central Illinois, into parts of southern Indiana. I like Indianapolis closer to 3 to 6. Closer to 3 to 6. I know a lot of people have been projecting big numbers up there. I just think that a lot of dry air gets pulled into that part of the state. South part of town sees a lot more than the north part of town if you live in Indianapolis. Same story in Columbus, by the way. You want that 6 to 12, though, going down to the Ohio River, Cincinnati, Covington, Portsmouth, Ashland, Charleston. You guys are going to have your hands full. Washington, D.C. is going to take a hit, likely in the 6 to 12 range as well. And if you want a more detailed look at this map, let's see. Let me pull that up. There we go. There you go. So our friends in the Ohio River Valley, there's a good look for you. Louisville, I've got you at 3 to 6. Louisville 3 to 6, but I also have you with a realistic half-inch of ice. So if you end up with 6 inches of snow and a half-inch of ice, that is a mess. That is such a mess. Nick, Jeremy Capel is realistic. Thank you. I try to be. If you don't have credibility as a meteorologist, you have nothing. How about Brandenburg? You're right there, kind of on the southern end of a 3 to 6. Probably 1 to 3, you go south of town. Okay? All right. I've got a number of things to do. The late runs are coming in. Let me quickly check on that NAM that I was telling you about. That's the North American model, the high-res North American model. It's not in enough yet for me to share anything, so I'm going to wait. I'm going to go ahead and bring this live session for a close. Thank you for being on. Please consider sharing if you got something out of this video. One final question from my sister, Jessica Capel. You can find her at Starlight Soapery at wherever social media is available to you. I know she's huge on TikTok. I mean, TikTok writes her checks every month. I get very jealous. With that being said, she wants to know, how does this compare to the 2009 ice storm? I don't think it really does. In 2009, you had 1.5 inches. You had locally 2 inches of ice on the trees in western Kentucky. You had better than 1 inch for much of the Louisville metropolitan area and the parts of southern Indiana. I think this storm's about half that at most, okay? And I'm not trying to downplay this storm. This storm is just more multifaceted. It's multifaceted because it's going to be all modes of precipitation. Many areas do see the sleet, the freezing rain, and the heavy snow. And sometimes it'll go back and forth, okay? All right. Anyway, Levy says, thanks for being on. Jim has the same question. Again, I don't think it really compares to that ice storm. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. But all in all, very impactful storm. Anybody that ends up with a 1/2 inch of ice is going to have real problems, okay? All right, so with that being said, it's 8:52. I'm trying to budget my time. I haven't showered yet today, so that's going to happen here real soon, and then I'll be back on. I'm probably thinking around 10:30 maybe, and we'll be able to look at all the late stuff, and I'll finalize my forecast, the final forecast for this blockbuster winter storm, which it is going to cause a lot of problems. All right, thanks for being on here. Brian, how do we see your next post? Well, just follow this Facebook page for sure. You can sign up for the notifications. I do advise people to do that if you haven't already. Go to the little bell. Let me look at it. I haven't looked at it in a while. But there's the little bell, I think, and it should say when you're on there to subscribe and be notified. You want to be notified, hit the little bell. It'll tell you when I'm on. You can also keep up with me. That's through WX Live Media. That's also on Facebook. Now, that one's weather-only content, and you'll have a little bit more content on there, weather-related. You won't get the other stuff that I post on there. This will actually land there next. This live video will go over there. So it's available there. You can find me on Twitter. That's Jeremy Capel. And then also meteorologist Jeremy Capel on YouTube. That YouTube channel I'm trying to grow. So if you could find me there, that would be great. All right, guys, thank you for being on. I'll be back here in just a little while. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.